in another dimension, what superhero would you have been, and who would have been your enemy or arch nemesis?
Oh my gosh.
Thought it was an awesome book.
I'm a bit of an introvert, but there's also the other thing of shyness. And I think shy and introvert don't belong together.
You're not only an author, but a sales engineering trainer, and you're also a student of life. Did you ever think from the moment you were in that technical university that you'd be in a pre-sales position?
No.
This was the fastest read I've done in a while. Awesome.
You're a great host.
The Tony Moze Podcast.
I'm Patrick. I'm leading a company called Sales Hero with the little guy here, right? With the little phoenix. Love writing, and the phoenix is a symbol of that, right? Coming out of the ashes. So every hero needs to die to be reborn, right? That's the kind of the idea behind. And what I do is I train and coach sales engineers into their role, or actually get them from the beginner on an advanced level, or even further. So this is my life. I write novels and I train sales engineers.
You wrote the book, the sales engineer, the social sales engineer. Thought it was an awesome book. This is an awesome book. I don't want to get into the question yet. I just want to say, I haven't read a book that's a nonfiction that poses as a fiction, but then when you read it, you have you have a story about this individual, and then you also have quotes, then you have principles or laws. It just had an all-encompassing feeling. I enjoyed this so much, and I read through it so quickly. I mean, I don't know if that was your intention, but with all the chapters that are in here, 228, 240 something pages or whatever, I read through that within a week. This was the fastest read I've done in a while. I enjoyed it. This was a great book. I think, I don't know if it was because of the quick chapters. I don't know if it was because you had a fictional story and then you mixed it in with some other things in there, but it read so quickly for me. I really enjoyed this book. Yeah. So
thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, from a writing technique perspective, there is a trick to a good movie, right? You have a theme that goes from beginning to end. That's a big one. So it's called the premise when you write. And there's a conflict in every chapter. And that makes, because they're very short, so you need about 1,000 words for a scene. And every scene is around this length and has one conflict, and that pulls you through, right? So this is kind of the page turning thing. And it's very, it's short chapters. So it's concise. There's no blah, right? Long pages leading to a result. It's very German directness kind of thing.
I love it, man.
To the point. I tried. So I'm so happy that it worked and that you enjoy it. I hope it motivates. So that's the goal. Motivate sales engineers to go out there, be on social media like you do, right? That's amazing.
I read your book, and I must say it was fun, informative, and thought-provoking. I felt a mix of Ray Dalio's principles, John C. Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, Stoicism, and more. So what inspired you to write this book?
Good question. And I'm typically in contact with mentors, and Don Carmichael is one of my mentors, and we meet every 6 weeks or so. But regularly, we have this meeting in our calendar, so it's booked, right? And this one day, we just spoke about it would be great if sales engineers get ideas on how to get more social, because this will come. It will be an essential thing in the future, right? It follows a storytelling framework that you see in Star Wars, for example, or big Hollywood movies use this. It's called the hero's journey.
Did you ever think from the moment you were in that technical university that you'd be in a pre-sales position? Just thinking that from the moment you were graduating out of the university, did you say,
no,
I'm going to be in pre-sales?
No, and I was naive. I was just going to university and thinking IT is a good thing. Let's see what I will do, right? I wasn't sure if this is development or consulting. I didn't even know that a sales engineer role existed. I didn't even know since IBM, I would say. I did it partly, right? In the first company, we worked that way, funnily enough, but we didn't have an idea that this is really an existing role. Like this is now very hip and hype and a great and famous role, or becoming more and more famous, right?
So when you were a senior integration architect at IBM in 2014, what was that source of inspiration for you at that moment that said, hey, let's jump into pre-sales. Let's become a solutions consultant?
My wife was pregnant with our first daughter. And I thought, if I don't get off IBM, I will wake up with 60, right, and still be there. So I thought I need to change my life. It's boring. It's not my thing. Nothing against IBM. It's good, but something for me wasn't right there at this point of time. It was just too slow moving, and it felt like going through I don't know, cement. You know what I mean? It was really like or water, right? It's with clothes. I don't know. So I thought I want to change, and I looked around. I had headhunters looking for me. It was the good thing about the social media at this time already. LinkedIn helped. And then there was one recruiter from MuleSoft. And I know she was great. And we were going through this process, but I had two other opportunities. And at some point we phoned, and she said if I would have decided for something. I said, yeah, well, I'm not sure. And then she said, yeah, well, it's okay. We were looking for something more senior anyways. And I was like, what? No, stop. Okay, no, I just decided I do that, right? I'm senior, I will do this. She really like, I don't know, got me, right? It's like she got me with my ego, I don't know. And and then I said, okay, let's do MuleSoft. Let's do that. It's a start. It was the most risky option, right? And my wife, and this time we just got our daughter. She was 3 months, and this is when I changed.
Awesome.
Yeah. Then I was in pre-sales, not knowing what this meant at all. I just knew it was a client-facing role.
So looking at this book, in your book, page 69, you mentioned something about success and how it's not an overnight thing. You also use the example of authors, an author like J.K. Rowling, and how it took her decades to get her the recognition and fame from Harry Potter. I mean, her recognition and fame was with Harry Potter, but nobody knew what was going on behind the scenes. You said attracting fortune means a lot of work, and you provided examples. What types of challenges did you have to face from the moment you got out of the university all the way to when you became your solutions engineer at Salesforce? Like, what were your whole experiences of setbacks and challenges to finally put you in this moment where you're now this kind of, effective, capable sales engineer?
I think that the core thing is all about me, right? First, get your fears out of the way. And second, your ego, right? And they belong somewhat together. It might sound like crazy, and people might expect like you need to learn a lot, or you need to know a lot, right? This clear. You should be interested in what you do. You should learn. You should read. Yeah, please do that. It's good for your brain. Anyways, but the other thing is, I needed to unlearn a bit, like how I was grown up, or maybe how I was from a personal type. So I'm a bit of an introvert, but there's also the other thing of shyness, and I think shy and introvert don't belong together. So I needed to get rid of my shyness, and this was fear part. I'm still an introvert and I don't enjoy big parties or something like that, right? It's always a bit of a struggle for me. But I got rid of the shyness, so I have no problem anymore to go to somebody, right? But I had this massively, like talk to a stranger. I couldn't do that. But this is one thing, and going into sales helped, right? And the other thing is just thinking about you, like my career, my money, my partner, my house, my flat, right? I loved shiny coffee machines. I loved everything like on tag, what is expensive I could buy. I just love to do that. But I realized that this is not living, in some way. I still enjoy like good equipment and stuff like that, but to a minimum, right? And that's also the thing when you change, becoming more an entrepreneur, like now, this is like the step after the realization, right? Because at one time you realize, you're just working, giving your time for money, right? And it is fulfilling, but not anymore. If you say I'm not that interested in having this monthly money so that I can buy more things, can have my subscriptions on on Disney Plus and Netflix, right, everywhere. So that's not my goal anymore. So this is a long-term thing, about 20, 30 years. And I did a lot of personal development, courses, books and stuff like that to develop myself. At one point I realized what I am is not enough. But for me, like, it's tough to answer, but I think the critical point is in you. It's somehow in you. And when you want to serve a customer, yes, you can be this arrogant, knowledgeable person who dominates the room, right? That can be well perceived by a client, or you can be like there, listening, right? Getting all the notions and really responding to people and helping them, and not showing off what you know, right? So those are the two pre-sales types I actually see. The one who's, it's more about them. You feel this, right? Because they talk. They know everything, right? Every question thrown at them, 10 sentences answer, right? And the other person, silent, listening, taking care, only the right things to answer, right? And maybe even a question. What do you mean, right? Instead of just answering.
So most people are afraid of publicly posting things on social media for fear it would hurt them in their future, or what they think they're taking up. They think that I don't want to post because I don't want to be taking up people's feeds. All they see is me. People have their own individual reasons for why they don't want to post. Nevertheless, a lot of people I've noticed don't like posting because especially if it's professional, it's almost like walking on landmines, they would feel. At least I felt that a little bit too. I'm a person that will post, but nevertheless, I noticed that with people. How do we convince these people to think differently? Like, what are a few strategic tips for an aspiring sales engineer in posting him or herself on social media to be regarded as credible, intelligent, or successful?
The easiest tip, write a book. And then you don't fear anything anymore because you get it. No, seriously, I think you should learn writing, because that's a crucial skill, not only just for posting, because we write so much, right? Your notes, your email to whomever, to a client, or to your boss, your manager, right? So we write thousands and thousands of words today, but we don't invest in a skill how to make this readable effortlessly, and to use the minimum number of words, right? It takes much more time, of course, but if you train this, you would feel more comfortable actually putting something out there on social media, I think. So learning this. And the second thing is, hey, get somebody to look at your stuff. No author published something without an editor or beta readers. It's so crucial that you get the opinion of smaller group beforehand, and that you can rethink this, rework this, right? We all make mistakes. There's, of course, if I have this idea in my mind and then now go on LinkedIn and post something, and the next day I get like, what a crap, right? People respond not in a very nice way, right? Of course, when I'm that short-sighted, it might happen, but take your time. A post can sit on your desktop for 1-2 weeks. Look at this like every other day. Refine the stuff, right? Your first initial idea is not always great, but you can develop it into a great idea, yeah? Or a great post. Yeah. Awesome. That's the point. So have someone review this and be confident by giving yourself a process. Yeah? Let it ripe a bit. Look away and then look with fresh eyes again. You will immediately see how other people will perceive this, because you forget what you wrote like after some days. Yeah.
So they say that your social media handles, platforms can be your business card. Have you heard of stories of people who got jobs simply off of posting content on social media?
I think this happens more often. Yeah, I know one now, and he will be on my show, I think in 2-3 weeks. Amir, he was sales engineer in, I think, in a DevOps realm, and posted regularly, and even got customers for his client, right? And I think this is a great example, yeah. And now he's, I think, at MuleSoft, and he uses the same strategy. So, and this is amazing. With this intent, you create highly, resourceful, I would say, content, right? Because it doesn't work otherwise. You don't need to go out there just to put some quotes out there, right? It doesn't matter. Especially as a sales engineer, you should work with your topic, with your domain, with your area. Maybe try to find a niche in there and be very specific and helpful, maybe with how-tos, right? Or with infographics, or with short videos that explain something about your industry, right? So that I get insights. Yeah. And then something magic will happen. Prospects you work on might research you. And when you join the discovery call, they say, hey, I have the feeling I know you, right? I've seen your video or I've read your blog. And this happens. This happens definitely. And that's a big advantage over your competitor's sales engineer. And if you don't do it, your competitor's sales engineer and one day will do it. And this will be, it will be very tough to overcome this, right? And to beat this kind of advantage. If the other company is set up this way, also on social media. But sales engineers are lagging behind, definitely.
In your social engineer book, chapter 46, titled Thought Leaders Create Their Own Category, after reading the chapter, I had questions in mind, or I had a question in mind. I believe our problem with humanity is that we don't love and respect each other. That's one of the human problems I believe we have, or at least have compassion for humanistic differences. I believe another collective problem, especially in business, is that departments are siloed, separated, to the point that they don't bother to care or understand that each department is just as important as the other. For example, I noticed that sales inherently cares about closing the deal. Once the customer has purchased the product, it's on to the next. Meanwhile, in post-sales, customer success managers are angry that their account executive lied, stretching the truth, or just didn't talk about the lack of capabilities the product has. And now customer success has to put out that fire or have to deal with telling them that their account executive basically lied. Now, let's look at this great problem within just the sales engineering department. What do you think is a great problem that sales engineers are still trying to solve? This could be an individual subjective thing, or it could be more of a collective. Perhaps this could be your thoughts on this. This could be thoughts from your own experience. But what do you think is the great problem that sales engineers are still trying to solve?
I think they try to figure out themselves where they belong, right? do I belong to sales? Am I sales? I would say yes, definitely. And it's also a chance, like you get the same thing. As a sales engineer, you never, let's put it otherwise. The developers will say, this guy has no clue, right? He only tells the customer what he has from the documentation, or if it's more difficult, they will ask us. I think this is how the developers sometimes think. I just remember I had a post on LinkedIn exactly talking about this. What other domains, when you are a sales engineer, right? When other domains tell you about this, and I wrote this down, but I don't remember everything anymore. But there were some things like also always the roadmap is a thing. So a big problem for sales engineers is, because they draw the art of the possible towards the client, you need to have a vision. Otherwise, you won't beat the competition. It simply doesn't work otherwise. So you need to set up something for the client that they feel compelling and that resonates with them. That might mean you are going a bit farther than what the product has. Maybe you rely on something after discussions with product management, right? Or you actually try to compensate what the market does, right? So the market wants something, but your product management or your product is not there because they're on a completely different track. So, and to juggle this, I think is a big challenge. I always thought, because I hated sales when I was in backend, I was the same thing, like, hey, what have they sold? Today, I understand that sales only really reacts to what the market wants. And the flaw is the product, because it's not flexible enough to change to every specific of the market, right? So, and there's the anger. It's more like the backend people don't want or accept change. They have bigger trouble with that than maybe salespeople, who are more open towards change, more accepting, right? So this is some of my thinking. So it's part of this need. It's a needed friction between both, right? It's needed so things can improve. And I think it's good that sales sells stuff that not really fits to the, or not 100% fits to the product as it is now. Because if they would, it wouldn't go forward, right? I mean, the change is needed so the product can improve and actually stays within what the market demands. So this is my understanding. Although I know it's tough to understand if you've never done sales. For a backend person, it's completely not understandable. I remember my own mind, right? I specified the product. I talked to a lot of clients, so it must be what they want. But that's not true. Yeah, you know nothing, Jon Snow. In product management, there is always a range of the unknown, right? Where you guess, and that's a bit of the problem. And in sales engineering, you guess too in some ways, right? Because you don't have the full knowledge about the product, or you miss one important thing of the client, right? It can always happen. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges.
So you had a talk recently with Don Carmichael, who is an advisor and leader in pre-sales, and Bob, as we'd say in American, Reifstahl, the author of Demonstrating to Win, which made me think of a couple questions in this. So when talking about how sales engineers need to tell stories in their demos, what are some good ways to tell a story with a prospective customer?
So very specifically, there's a framework I love and teach. It's called PAS, Pain, Agitate, Solve. So the idea is quite simple. When you talk to the customer, you first should do desk research and then try to come up with a story that fits them. And you would first state the pain, like very clearly. I mean, what a book industry, for example, look at KDP, right? If you have a traditional publisher, you could go there and say, yeah, I think ebooks or whatever self-publisher are eating your market and you're not even aware of, right? And then you go forward and agitate this, right? Like we know ebook sales go up, right? You can look at the charts from KDP, Amazon, for example, and we know your ebook sales maybe declines. Something is wrong there. Do you act, right? Are you seeing your authors going away and publish the same books they publish with you again after the contract was like resolved, right? They've republished this and make more money. Then they decide to go and actually do it on their own, right? So this is the agitate. You would go deeper using painful words, and then you go into solve, right? And the solve is, and the important thing is to position yourself as a guide for the client. So the client should be the hero. Yeah. So then you could say, well, I've worked with publishers before and let them through the change that is needed to get authors back in here, to offer them packages that they will love and take away like stuff they don't like in being self-publishers, for example, just making this up right now. But this is the idea. So this way you can tell a story quite easy. Pain, agitate, solve. That's the simplest framework. There are more like hero's journey frameworks for business, 7-step, 12-step, 20 steps. That's all too many. I try to teach all of those. The best is PAS. If you know nothing before, use this framework and then grow from there. But use it for a year, for everything you see, everything you write. Use pain, agitate, solve until it's like your second nature. And then go off and try other frameworks. that would be my take on that. Yeah, and also for demo scripts. Like I know there's tell, show, tell, but you can also mix this up. You can tell actually the story, the past story, and then you show it, and then you tell it again. So, just for example, yeah.
Pain, agitate, solve, pass. Awesome. So would you say doing demos is a bit of acting?
Absolutely. It has to be. I mean, I wouldn't watch Netflix if it wouldn't be entertaining, right? And if I'm a client watching 5 like competitors pitching, I want entertainment, right? If I'm sitting there for 5 hours, like in an RFP process and watching the results, it doesn't work otherwise. It's your responsibility as a sales engineer to be educational and entertaining.
You know, you just said my not my logo, but not my motto, but just basically my tagline. I really believe I believe in edutainment. I think we can't just, if we're going to educate people, we're going to have to entertain them as well. We have to find a way to compel people. I believe in that theory, that hypothesis. People learn best with something that has a little bit of education, entertainment in it. It's reminding me of a subject that I had back in high school, history. I used to think it was so boring until I met a teacher who taught it so awesomely. And how did she teach it? She just, she put on costumes, or she'd put music and sing, and then talk about this one specific topic or colors, all these things. And she was so captivating that I started falling in love with history. Now I see how important history is, of course. I think that's the way that more educators should be. They should be entertaining or edutaining. So the fact that you said that is awesome. And I want to definitely maybe use that as a nice little, not blurb, but a quick little sound bite. You're not only an author, but a sales engineering trainer, and you're also a student of life, I noticed. How many books? Yeah. I mean, just reading the book itself, like you have definitely consumed a lot of content and material, different types of people and gurus and everything. I heard James Altucher, you talk Ray Dalio. I'm assuming you've heard of Gary Vaynerchuk,
Sure.
all these great people, well, how many books have you read in the past year or few years?
100 books maybe in a year. 50 to 100, I would say. Depends, but all over the place. I'm also trading. So I read a lot of trading books, and sometimes they take me 2 months because I need to work through them. Sometimes there's a novel in between. Sometimes it's psychology. Now I'm reading about acting and also about introverts and extroverts. Yeah, sales books are a big part in my bookshelf. And yeah, sometimes novels. I should read them more often because I write them. But
what would you say are your like favorite books that, you know, even before writing your book, like what were some favorite books of yours, whether it was nonfiction or fiction?
The most influential, I think, is Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, right? That's everyone should read this. Like, if everyone would read this book, I think most people would reconsider how they think about others and how good they, what good life they live, right?
Yeah.
The same as the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, like Stephen Covey, was a very early book of mine too that changed my life. Yeah, there are much more. It's so tough. Maybe Alexander Elder. There's a trading book that's really good. Alexander Elder is a great guy. If you want to go into trading, this also changed my life in that way because I did it more professionally that way. And there's Jeb Blount that I read recently. He writes in a very nice way, and those are sales books. Like that's very interesting for sales engineers too. He has a fanatical prospecting. That's not really sales engineers, but they could use it. And the other one is objection handling, which is pretty good, and a good read also for sales engineers. Yeah, and those would be my recommendations. Read Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art. This is how he calls it. Amazing, really good. And yeah, then several books about copywriting and author fiction, author nonfiction, how to write novels, how to write texts.
Yeah. So last question.
Sure.
Well, last question is, in another dimension, what superhero would you have been, and who would have been your enemy or arch nemesis?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's like a mythic, like if you know Lord of the Rings, there are orcs in there. I wrote a book about a more fuzzy, furry is the thing, the furry orc, but he's a shaman, means he's like a healer, like with this bone club thing, and he can talk to ghosts and stuff like that. So, and I would rather be this kind of hero. And in my book, he's the hero, and the enemy is this typical hero group of a knight and a magician and an elf, right? And those would be my enemies in some sense, because yeah, I'm living against, the way I live is a bit against conventional rules, like in our society, that comes quite naturally with the way when you got self-employed, when you have your own company, right? We think about eating in a very unconventional way, like yeah. So those are things that just go against the society, and I sometimes feel like an orc, and everyone else are those shiny heroes. And this is like the dimension I thought of. And also my next book I think about, so in the same sense, to have a female hero. Yeah, it will be a bit of a challenge for me, but I have 2 daughters, as I said, so I want to be a good role model in that sense. Don't be afraid of IT, please. We need more women in IT. It's really healthy for us, especially in sales. I think they can give so much, and it makes things selling so smooth, and it takes away so many male hormones. I don't know, right?
Well, Patrick, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and also giving us your words and message today. Guys, please pick up the book, The Social Sales Engineer, especially for those who are trying to get into this field. This is an excellent read. Again, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure being here, and yeah, that you invited me. It was great.
Awesome.
You're a great host.